A controlled environment gives people a false sense of certainty. When everything is labeled safe, supervised, and planned, the mind relaxes in ways it shouldn't. The room feels predictable. The rules feel fixed. Everyone assumes the outcome has already been decided before the first step is taken. That assumption is where mistakes begin. Training spaces are designed to reduce risk, not remove reality, but many people confuse the two. They believe that because the weapons are dull, the stakes must be low. Because there are instructors watching, nothing unexpected can happen. Because it's an exercise, the body will behave the same way it does in theory. But control is never absolute. It's conditional. It exists only as long as everyone involved performs exactly as expected. The moment one variable shifts, the environment stops being controlled and starts revealing what it really is, a test. In training, uncertainty is not a flaw. It's the point. The pressure, the speed, the discomfort, even the embarrassment are all there to strip away false confidence. When someone steps into that space thinking the outcome is guaranteed, they're already behind. People often underestimate how fast control can collapse. One movement too slow. One assumption too comfortable. One hesitation that lasts half a second longer than planned. In real training, those small gaps matter. They are where instinct takes over. And instinct doesn't care about schedules or lesson plans. It reacts to what's happening now, not what was supposed to happen next. A controlled environment only controls the boundaries. Inside those boundaries, reality still moves at full speed. There's also the issue of perception. Observers see order. Participants feel chaos. From the outside, a drill may look clean and organized. From the inside, it's loud, disorienting, and fast. The body doesn't register training the way the mind does. Heart rate spikes. Vision narrows. Muscles tense. Even when you know you're safe, your nervous system prepares as if you're not. That's why people freeze in drills. That's why plans fall apart. The environment may be controlled, but the human response is not. This is especially true when vulnerability is introduced on purpose. When control is handed over, even briefly, the illusion of safety cracks. Being restrained, surrounded, or put at a disadvantage forces the brain to confront the possibility of failure. That moment is uncomfortable by design. It exposes how much we rely on predictability. When predictability disappears, skill is the only thing left to lean on. Not strength, not size, not confidence. Skill built through repetition and stress. Another problem with controlled environments is that they encourage underestimation. People see training tools and forget what they represent. A training knife is still shaped like a blade. A uniform is still something that can be grabbed, pulled, or compromised. When those symbols are treated casually, awareness drops. The mind tells itself this isn't real, so reactions soften. But the body doesn't always get that message. When motion happens suddenly, when space closes fast, the response can be raw and unfiltered. True professionals understand this. They don't relax just because the setting is supervised. They don't assume cooperation. They treat every movement as information and every shift in balance as a potential threat. For them, control isn't about the room. It's about themselves, their breathing, their posture, their attention. They carry discipline into the environment instead of borrowing safety from it. The most revealing moments in training often come when something goes off script. Not because someone failed, but because the script was never the point. Those moments show who depends on structure and who carries structure within them. They expose who needs permission to act and who understands timing. A controlled environment is not a guarantee of safety or success. It's a mirror. It reflects preparation, awareness, and respect for how quickly order can dissolve when assumptions replace readiness. Training is where honesty lives. Not the kind spoken out loud, but the kind the body tells when pressure shows up. In calm conditions, almost everyone looks capable. Movements are smooth. Decisions feel obvious. Confidence comes easily when there's time to think and space to breathe. But pressure changes the rules. It compresses time, narrows focus, and strips away anything that hasn't been earned. What remains is the truth of what someone actually knows how to do. Under pressure, The mind doesn't rise to its ideals. It falls to its habits. That's why training matters more than intention. You can believe you'll stay calm, believe you'll act decisively, believe you'll remember every step, but belief has very little authority once stress takes over. The nervous system doesn't care what you planned. It responds to what it recognizes. If something hasn't been practiced deeply enough to become familiar, it doesn't show up when it's needed most. Pressure exposes gaps that comfort hides. It shows where movements are sloppy, where timing is off, where hesitation sneaks in. It reveals whether someone truly understands distance, balance, and leverage, or if they were relying on cooperation and predictability. In low-stress settings, those weaknesses stay quiet. Under pressure, they speak immediately, sometimes loudly, sometimes in a freeze that lasts just long enough to change everything. This is why realistic training is uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. The discomfort isn't punishment. It's information. Elevated heart rate, confusion, physical contact, noise, and unpredictability all work together to pull people out of their heads and into their instincts. When that happens, excuses disappear. There's no time to explain why something didn't work. There's only the result. Either the action was there, or it wasn't. Pressure also reveals emotional truth. Some people rush when stressed. Others lock up. Some become overly aggressive. Others shrink. None of these reactions are moral failures. They're data. Training puts those reactions on display so they can be understood and adjusted. Without pressure, those tendencies stay theoretical. With pressure, they become visible patterns that can't be ignored. Another truth pressure reveals is how well someone manages themselves. Not just technique, but breathing, posture, and attention. Small things matter when stress is high. Shallow breathing leads to faster fatigue. Poor posture limits movement. Scattered attention causes missed cues. Training under pressure forces these details to the surface. It shows whether someone can stay present instead of panicking, observant instead of reactive. There's also the question of ego. Pressure has a way of crushing it. Titles, reputation, and past success don't carry much weight in the middle of a demanding drill. The environment doesn't care who you think you are. It responds only to what you do in that moment. Training reveals whether someone is attached to looking good or focused on doing the work. Under pressure, those priorities can't coexist for long. Importantly, pressure doesn't just reveal weaknesses. It also reveals strengths people didn't know they had. Some individuals become sharper when stress rises. Their focus tightens. Their movements simplify. They stop overthinking and start responding. These traits often stay hidden in relaxed settings, where there's no urgency to bring them out. Pressure gives them a reason to surface. This is why repetition alone isn't enough. Repetition without stress builds familiarity, but not reliability. Pressure tests whether that familiarity can survive disruption. Can the movement still happen when the plan breaks? Can the decision still be made when information is incomplete? Can control be maintained when the situation feels unfair? Training answers these questions without words. Over time, people who train under pressure stop fearing it. Not because it becomes easy, but because it becomes known. They recognize the sensations and understand that clarity can exist inside them. That familiarity builds confidence grounded in experience, not hope. It teaches respect for how quickly things can change and how little time there is to correct mistakes once they do. Training doesn't lie. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't negotiate. Under pressure, it shows exactly what will show up when conditions are far from ideal, when cooperation disappears, when time runs out, and when the body is asked to act before the mind finishes explaining why aggression feels powerful because it's loud and fast. It fills space and demands attention. When people think about conflict, they often picture force meeting force, intensity overpowering resistance. That image is persuasive because it looks decisive. But aggression burns energy quickly and clouds judgment just as fast. It relies on momentum and emotion, which are unstable tools once resistance appears. Calm, on the other hand, doesn't advertise itself. It doesn't rush. It waits, observes, and chooses. Calm creates clarity. When the body isn't flooded with panic or rage, The mind can process information accurately. Distance, timing, posture, and intent become visible. Aggression narrows focus to a single objective, often at the cost of awareness. Calm widens perspective. It allows someone to notice small shifts in weight, tension in the hands, hesitation in movement. These details decide outcomes long before strength ever matters. Aggression also makes people predictable. Anger follows patterns. So does panic. Raised shoulders, tightened fists, forward momentum, overcommitment. Calm disrupts those patterns because it doesn't react the way aggression expects. When one side is emotionally charged and the other is composed, the imbalance grows. The aggressive person spends energy trying to force an outcome. The calm person spends attention gathering information. Attention is the more valuable currency. There's a physical cost to aggression that's often ignored. Muscles tense unnecessarily. Breathing becomes shallow. Movements grow rigid. Power may increase briefly, but endurance drops. Fine motor control disappears. Calm keeps the body efficient. Muscles engage only when needed. Breathing stays steady. Movement remains fluid. Efficiency beats excess when time is limited and mistakes are expensive. Calm also shortens decision-making. That sounds counterintuitive, but emotional overload slows reaction. When the brain is overwhelmed, it hesitates or chooses poorly. Calm reduces internal noise. Decisions become simpler, not because the situation is easy, but because priorities are clear. What matters now? What can wait? What must be done immediately? Aggression tries to do everything at once. Calm does one thing at the right moment. Another advantage of calm is control over escalation. Aggression feeds on response. It grows when met with fear or equal intensity. Calm denies that fuel. It doesn't challenge emotionally. It doesn't rush to dominate. That lack of escalation can destabilize an aggressive opponent who expects resistance or submission, not composure. The absence of emotional feedback creates uncertainty, and uncertainty slows action. Calm is also harder to fake. Anyone can shout. Anyone can tense up. Calm requires regulation. It's built through exposure to stress, not avoidance of it. People who have trained under pressure learn that calm isn't passive. It's active restraint. It's the choice to keep breathing steady, to stay balanced, to delay action until timing is right. That restraint often looks effortless, but it's the result of discipline. In confrontations, aggression commits early. Once committed, it's difficult to change direction. Calm allows adjustment. If something unexpected happens, the calm individual can pivot without losing structure. Aggression resists change because it's already spent too much energy to stop. That flexibility makes calm more dangerous than it appears. There's also a psychological effect. Aggression intimidates those who are unprepared. It fails against those who aren't impressed. Calm projects confidence without display. It suggests control, experience, and readiness. That perception alone can influence behavior, creating hesitation where aggression hoped to create fear. Hesitation creates openings. Calm doesn't mean slow. It means precise. Speed without control is waste. Control without speed is insufficient. Calm integrates both. It allows speed to be applied exactly where it's useful, not everywhere at once. That selectivity makes action more effective and less risky. People often mistake calm for weakness because it lacks drama, but calm is what allows someone to act decisively without being reckless. It's what keeps technique intact under pressure. It's what prevents unnecessary damage, both to others and to oneself. Aggression seeks dominance. Calm seeks resolution. In high-stakes situations, emotion is a liability. It distorts perception and invites error. Calm accepts reality as it is, not as it feels. It works with what's present instead of fighting what can't be changed. That acceptance creates space for intelligent action. This is why those with real experience value calm over intensity. They've seen how quickly aggression collapses when it meets resistance. They've felt how composure preserves options. Calm doesn't rush to prove anything. It waits for the moment when action matters most and uses only what's necessary to end the situation efficiently. Strength is easy to admire because it's visible. Muscles, size, and raw power are obvious from a distance. Precision is quieter. It doesn't announce itself until the moment it's applied, and when it is, it often looks effortless. People tend to believe that more force solves more problems, but force without accuracy is wasteful. It creates motion without control and effort without efficiency. Precision turns small actions into decisive ones. In physical situations, precision is about placement, timing, and alignment. Where a hand goes matters more than how hard it moves. When weight shifts matters more than how much weight there is. A perfectly timed step can neutralize far more power than a rushed shove ever could. Precision works with physics instead of fighting it. It uses leverage, balance, and angles to create outcomes that strength alone can't reliably produce. Strength also degrades quickly under stress. Muscles tire. Grip weakens. Breathing becomes strained. Precision is less demanding. It conserves energy by eliminating unnecessary movement. When every action has a purpose, there's less to recover from. That efficiency extends endurance and maintains effectiveness long after raw power starts to fade. There's also a margin of error issue. Strength depends on dominance. If it doesn't overwhelm immediately, it often fails. Precision allows for adjustment. A precise movement can be corrected mid-action. A precise decision can adapt to resistance. Strength commits fully and early, leaving little room to change course once momentum is spent. Precision requires awareness. It depends on noticing small details: posture, tension, balance, and intention. Strength can ignore these details for a short time, but precision cannot exist without them. That awareness creates control. Control reduces chaos. In chaotic environments, control becomes more valuable than power. Another overlooked aspect is reliability. Precision can be repeated consistently. Strength varies day to day, affected by fatigue, injury, stress, and emotion. Precision, once learned, remains accessible even when conditions are poor. It doesn't rely on peak physical condition. It relies on understanding and timing. Precision also reduces risk. Excessive force increases the chance of injury, escalation, and unintended consequences. Accurate movement limits exposure. It keeps actions contained and proportional. That matters not only for effectiveness, but for accountability. Precision allows someone to act decisively without creating unnecessary damage. In training, people often chase strength because it feels productive. Lifting more, hitting harder, pushing faster give immediate feedback. Precision develops more slowly. It requires patience, repetition, and correction. It involves failing quietly and adjusting subtly. Because progress isn't dramatic, it's easy to undervalue. But when pressure arrives, precision shows its worth instantly. Precision also shortens reaction time. When movements are refined, there's less decision-making involved. The body recognizes patterns and responds automatically. Strength-based responses often involve preparation, wind-up, and commitment. Precision-based responses are compact and direct. They arrive faster because there's less to execute. There's a psychological element as well. Precision unsettles opponents because it breaks expectations. People anticipate force and brace for it. When force doesn't come, or when it comes in an unexpected direction with minimal effort, confusion sets in. Confusion disrupts coordination and timing, further amplifying the effect of precise action. Precision is also more scalable. It works across differences in size and strength. A smaller person with precise movement can influence a larger one. Strength scales poorly in those situations. Precision equalizes. It shifts advantage away from physical attributes and toward skill. Importantly, precision doesn't eliminate strength. It directs it. Strength applied precisely becomes efficient and controlled. Without precision, strength is blunt and unpredictable. With precision, even moderate strength becomes sufficient. In real-world situations, there is rarely space or time for maximal force. Environments are tight. Conditions are imperfect. Precision thrives in those constraints. It adapts to limited space, uneven footing, and unexpected resistance. Strength struggles when it can't fully express itself. This is why experienced professionals emphasize accuracy over power. They understand that the goal isn't to exert the most effort, but to achieve the result with the least necessary input. Precision respects limits, both physical and situational, and turns those limits into advantages rather than obstacles. Assumptions feel efficient. They save time, reduce mental load, and create a sense of familiarity in uncertain situations. The brain loves them because they allow quick categorization: safe or dangerous, capable or incapable, trained or untrained. But every assumption closes off alternatives, and in high-stakes situations, closed thinking becomes exposure. What feels like confidence is often just an unexamined belief waiting to be challenged. One of the most common assumptions is predictability. People expect others to behave according to roles, appearances, or context. Uniforms signal authority or compliance. Training settings signal restraint. Size, gender, or demeanor signal capability or lack of it. These signals shape expectations, and expectations shape response time. When reality deviates from expectation, hesitation appears. That hesitation is the opening. Assumptions also distort attention. When someone believes they know what will happen next, they stop observing closely. The mind fills in gaps instead of gathering data. Subtle cues get missed because the brain is already committed to a narrative. In dynamic situations, missing a single detail can change everything. A shift in stance, a change in breathing, a glance toward an exit all matter, but assumptions push them out of focus. There's a dangerous comfort in shared assumptions. When a group agrees on how something is supposed to go, dissenting awareness disappears. Everyone relaxes at the same time. This collective blind spot amplifies risk because no one is actively questioning the situation. It's not that people become careless individually, but that responsibility diffuses. Each person trusts the structure, the process, or the role of others to handle surprises. Assumptions about control are especially risky. Believing that someone else is in charge, that rules will be followed, or that boundaries will be respected creates passive thinking. When those assumptions fail, reaction is delayed. People wait for permission that never comes. In critical moments, autonomy matters. The ability to act without waiting is often the difference between containment and escalation. Another vulnerability created by assumptions is emotional miscalculation. People assume fear, compliance, or hesitation where none exists. They project their own reactions onto others. This leads to overconfidence. When someone expects submission and instead meets resistance, the psychological shock can be as destabilizing as the physical one. Overconfidence slows adaptation. Assumptions also limit preparation. If a scenario is believed to be low risk, training intensity drops. Safeguards become symbolic rather than functional. Attention drifts. When something unexpected occurs, the system struggles to respond because it was never designed to handle deviation. The assumption of safety becomes the very thing that undermines it. Even positive assumptions can be dangerous. Assuming competence, goodwill, or shared understanding can create blind trust. Trust without verification invites exploitation, intentional or not. In complex environments, verification isn't cynicism. It's awareness. It keeps attention active and responses flexible. Assumptions are especially vulnerable to exploitation because they're invisible. People rarely announce what they're assuming. They act on it quietly. That makes it difficult to challenge in real time. By the time the assumption is exposed, the window to adjust may already be closing. This is why experienced individuals constantly test their own expectations, looking for discrepancies between what they believe and what they observe. Breaking free from assumptions requires effort. It means staying mentally engaged even when things feel routine. It means treating every interaction as potentially unique rather than familiar. That doesn't mean paranoia. It means curiosity. Asking, even silently, what might be different this time. Awareness thrives where assumptions weaken. When someone actively observes instead of categorizing, they respond faster to change. They notice when behavior doesn't match context. They pick up on inconsistencies and anomalies. That awareness creates options. Options reduce vulnerability. In high-pressure environments, adaptability is everything. Assumptions resist adaptation because they anchor thinking to a fixed outcome. When that outcome fails, confusion follows. Those who remain effective are those who never fully commit to a single expectation. They prepare for variation and accept that uncertainty is constant. Assumptions simplify reality, but reality doesn't reward simplicity when stakes are high. The more complex and unpredictable the environment, the more dangerous it is to rely on shortcuts. Vigilance, not confidence, is what keeps people ahead of unfolding situations. The most dangerous assumptions are the ones that feel reasonable. They're based on past experience, social norms, or apparent structure. But reasonableness doesn't guarantee accuracy. When conditions shift, even slightly, those assumptions become liabilities rather than guides. Opening gaps that decisive action can exploit. Discipline is often misunderstood as rigidity, punishment, or obedience. In reality, discipline is consistency under pressure. It's the ability to act the same way whether conditions are ideal or chaotic. When everything feels uncertain, discipline provides structure that doesn't depend on mood, fear, or adrenaline. It's not about force. It's about control, and control starts internally. Unlike physical tools, discipline doesn't fail when taken away. It can't be dropped, broken, or stripped from someone. When external advantages disappear, discipline remains. That's why it becomes the deciding factor in moments where strength, speed, or numbers don't guarantee success. Discipline governs breathing when panic tries to take over. It governs posture when balance is threatened. It governs decision-making when time is compressed. Discipline is built long before it's needed. It's developed through repetition, correction, and accountability. Doing things correctly when no one is watching matters more than performing when attention is present. The habits formed in quiet moments dictate behavior in loud ones. Under stress, there is no time to invent control. The body defaults to what it knows best. This is what separates discipline from motivation. Motivation is emotional and temporary. It rises and falls depending on circumstances. Discipline is neutral. It doesn't need encouragement or inspiration. It operates whether someone feels confident or afraid. When motivation disappears, discipline continues. In high-risk situations, discipline filters action. It prevents overreaction. It stops unnecessary movement. It keeps responses proportional. Without discipline, people either hesitate too long or act too much. Both are costly. Discipline creates balance. It allows decisive action without recklessness. Discipline also manages attention. Instead of fixating on fear or noise, it keeps focus on what matters most. Where's the threat? What is the priority? What action reduces risk right now? That clarity is not accidental. It's trained. It comes from repeatedly practicing focus in controlled discomfort, so it remains available when discomfort is no longer controlled. Another aspect of discipline is restraint. Knowing when not to act is as important as knowing when to move. Emotion pushes people toward premature decisions. Discipline delays action just long enough for timing to align. That pause, sometimes lasting less than a second, is often where advantage is created. Discipline also enforces simplicity. Under pressure, complex plans collapse. Discipline strips actions down to essentials. It keeps movements efficient and decisions direct. When stress increases, disciplined individuals don't add more. They remove what isn't necessary. There's a psychological edge to discipline as well. It projects stability. Others can sense when someone is composed and deliberate. That presence influences behavior, sometimes preventing escalation before it begins. Discipline doesn't seek intimidation, but it creates authority through control rather than force. Discipline is also what allows recovery after mistakes. No one performs perfectly under pressure. Errors happen. Without discipline, a mistake spirals into panic or overcorrection. With discipline, the mistake is acknowledged and adjusted without emotional collapse. That ability to reset quickly is critical. Importantly, discipline is not automatic. It must be maintained. Fatigue, stress, and complacency erode it over time. This is why disciplined people are relentless about fundamentals. They revisit basics not because they lack skill, but because fundamentals are what discipline is built on. Discipline also creates trust. In team environments, knowing that others will act predictably under stress reduces uncertainty. That trust allows coordination without communication. It allows individuals to focus on their role rather than compensating for chaos. Discipline becomes a shared language. When tools are removed, when plans fail, when environments turn hostile, discipline fills the gap. It replaces external structure with internal order. It ensures that behavior remains intentional rather than reactive. This is why discipline outlasts strength. Strength fades. Speed slows. Tools change. Discipline adapts. It carries experience forward and applies it consistently, regardless of circumstance. In moments where everything else is compromised, discipline is what remains intact. It governs the body, sharpens the mind, and directs action without noise or excess. It doesn't need to be seen to be effective. It only needs to be present when the moment demands it.